Good evening. How are you? Welcome along. Another Tuesday, another edition of Inspire and Be Inspired, our weekly motivational conversations, occasional life hacks as well. Nice to have you along. I can see we've got many people with us live, and of course, we always get a hell of a lot of you coming back to pick up the recording. I want to say hi to Pax and to Amy, who are the first to comment this evening, and I'll always remind you, if at any point through the conversation you want to ask any questions or make any comments, then do please feel free. And I will do my best whenever possible to pause in my chat and address anything that you guys have got to say. Hi to Wendy as well, who draws reference to our guest this evening and the topic, It's Okay Not to Know. And that is a title that was thought up by this evening's guest, who I will go straight to while he takes a big swig of his tea. It's all right. Mr. Dan Kiely. Good afternoon, my friend. How are you?
I'm very well, Andy. How are you?
I'm excited, ecstatic. I'm always good, me. I'm always good. Even when
You
I'm
are.
not,
That's
I
one thing
am.
I've always known about you. When I used to see you out on the dance floor at Southport, big smile on your face, in a good place, invariably.
That may have been alcohol induced. I'm a different person now. I'm a different person.
I'm sure. I'm sure. But a good heart.
Thank you for making that comment. It is appreciated. You yourself, as somebody who will be known by many people who join us live now, and we'll get to hear a little bit of your story. Wendy, I mentioned, states that she is an art psychotherapist and is looking forward to this conversation. And the gentleman who you may be aware of, Mark Hogg, says, "Hi, guys."
Hi, Mark.
Okay, then. So here we are. I've just jumped straight into it, brought you straight onto the stream. You and I have known each other for decades, but I think it's only fair that you get to introduce yourself in a way that you believe will be informative and possibly interesting as well for our
Okay.
viewers.
All right. Um, I'm Dan. I used to manage DJs back in the day, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I've always loved music, working with people that I admire, like as friends, and always gave me my goosebump moment. Every time I was, be at a gig with whoever I was with, I would always have a goosebump moment. They'd play a tune, the crowd would react, something would happen, and it would give me a goosebump moment. Um,
How did you get
However,
into that? Forgive me for interrupting. How did you get into the music scene?
um, I'm, I've always, I say, if you cut me, I bleed music. I've always loved music. And years ago, a guy I was at school with, a guy called Ollie White, who used to run Zoo Management, well known by many, used to look after Masters at Work. And we reconnected. I was working in a shop and he came in, and I DJ'd for him a couple of times at events that he'd done in back room. I DJ'd in the back room while I think Joe T. Vanelli was DJing in the main, cavernous warehouse. And I think stuff was just getting very busy for him with Masters at Work and Jazz and Groove and Terry Hunter and the Basement Boys and etc. And he asked me to come on board, and I did. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was about to become a social worker at the time as well. I was thinking, I'm going to become a social worker. And then Ollie was like, would you want to come and work with me? And then I thought, well, flying around the world with DJs or, taking people's kids away from them, what do I want to do? Oh, well, I can always do that later.
Yeah, I can
So
take kids away at any point in life.
exactly. So yeah, I went with my heart. I've always sort of gone with my heart. My life, I say that my life is cartwheeling down the staircase of life. I'm enjoying it. I don't really know where I'm going, but it's fun. And go with it. I just went with my heart. And prior to that, I'd worked in a hospital for people with learning disabilities, and I gave that up to follow my rock and roll heart. I just gave up work, had a band, tried to make it. At the time when decks were out selling guitars 4-1, and there was me, whacking away at a guitar with the sort of a Chili Peppers-esque. It was like the Red Hot Chili Peppers meets Sade, if you can imagine such a thing. And you know, I've always followed my heart, so yeah, hence me then hooking up with Ollie and working at Zoo.
And enjoying a very successful career, as you say, took you all around the world, and you managed. You then went on to set up your own company as well. So, briefly, the decline in all of that. How did it come about?
I'd been saying, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 5 years' time, but I've been saying it for 8 years. And I thought, I'm going to get bitten on the bum here, and it's suddenly going to be 10 years, and I'm going to go, why didn't I listen to myself, 4 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And, people going to nightclubs are getting younger. We're all getting older, Andy. Most of the artists that I was working with were becoming niche artists. They all DJ'd, as I'm sure you did, because of a love of music and wanting to rock a party and maybe impress a girl or a guy or whatever, and be cool. You didn't think I'm going to become a superstar DJ, because there weren't really any of those back in the day, unless you were, Westwood on radio or whatever. You know what I mean? They weren't really, radio DJ was as far as it went. So all the artists I worked with had put in the mileage. And then suddenly it became about, there was one guy, I can't even remember the track, but he put this track out, and it was just a vocal that he'd pinched from someone, and it worked. And that was it. He couldn't DJ, but he was getting $3,000 a night. And I just thought, and then obviously get the Paris Hiltons and the Danny Dyers. Danny Dyer called it twisting the screws, because his mates were doing mixtapes, and he'd put his finger on the mixer, on the screw on the mixer, and do that, to pretend he was mixing. And it became about personality and about not the music that was playing. It was about being a pop star, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all of the emphasis was away from the music, and it was all about the hype.
Yeah. And also, I like to think that I had two clients. I had the promoter and the artist, and I tried to make it work for both. I like to think I wasn't one of those agents that was like, it's fucking $50,000, sweet hookers, coke, that sort of, or nothing. You're not getting them, or contract as soon as the gig was done, as some agents did it. I like to think that I did it with a smile on my face, and both promoter and artist had a good time,
Okay. So there was Craig Bartlett's just jumped in. He said, "Yes, you were a great liar."
Hello, Craig.
Okay, then. So obviously the shine got taken off the whole scene at some point, and you decided to moonwalk out of there.
Yeah, it was just getting harder to get artists into places, because it was, and also I think Facebook and social media happened, and it wasn't about the music you played. It was how many followers you had, how many likes, how many retweet, whatever it was. I always remember a conversation with Phil Asher, who's like, I'm not fucking tweeting about what I've had for lunch for a promoter. I loved Phil dearly, but he must have been a promoter's nightmare, because promoters would say, can you do this, can you do that, can you be like, oh, because he didn't really engage. It was about the music for him. It was passion over fashion, as the quote is with Phil.
As he coined, most definitely. Okay, so I think this is a whole different conversation, but you've kind of summed it up for us pretty well. So then, when you walked away from the music industry, tell us about your journey into as to how you got to where you are now, and explain where you are now.
So, as I said, I before I worked in the hospital for people with learning disabilities, I did a degree in psychology, and I wanted to become a psychoanalyst and And whilst on my journey there, I fell out of love with psychoanalysis and sort of these strict sort of or these my feeling was that they knew better than you, and that your dreams were about this or that, and whatever. And I took my journey, and I became much more philosophical, and sort of got interested in philosophy and what's called phenomenological sort of existential stuff, which was more about understanding people's lived experience of what they were doing. And then, as I said, the DJ stuff started to sort of change, and I thought, I'm going to become a psychotherapist, because the one thing that happened was my dad had died, and I remember I was running and I was looking at these people's extensions, and our neighbour had built up our extension. So we had an extension, a loft extension. It was lovely. It was like my dad helped me sort of design, build it, and it was like a little haven. And then my neighbours built one off it, and I could hear them going up and down the stairs. It no longer became a haven. I was running along and I was looking at other people's and how other people's had built gaps between theirs. And I was really angry. And I thought, why am I so fucking angry? That's because I was grieving for my dad. I was, you know, the what they call the 7 stages of grief, and they come and go and etc. But I had psychotherapy. I had therapy when my dad died, and I found it the most liberating experience I've had. And it made me think, this is what I was interested in before music got its fangs into me, and you know, I rode that bike hard. So I mulled it over, and I decided to go back to uni and did a master's in psychotherapy and an integrative psychotherapy and counselling master's, which I thoroughly enjoyed. At 40, I'm 52 this year, so probably about 46.
Wow.
46, 47.
Brilliant. A full change of direction.
Yeah.
Well, a revert to the original journey.
Sorry?
You reverted back to the original journey. Shouts out to Schoolie, locked on. He says, "Evening, guys. I'm just settling into this one." Okay, so you got into this. So, what is psychotherapy? Please explain it to an ignorant person like myself, who's only familiar with therapists from watching people talk about it in America.
A good question. What is a psychotherapist? Because I work for the NHS, and under the NHS, I'm called a counsellor. So you've got counsellors, psychotherapists, psychoanalysts, psychiatrists. Now, the psychiatrist is a doctor who can prescribe drugs and deals with mental health. Okay. Psychoanalysts come mainly from a Freudian or Jungian or point of view about ego, id, superego, and the subconscious, etc. There's a lot of psychodynamic, and there's a lot of psychodynamic psychotherapists out there. I'm more of a person-centered, experiential, humanist, phenomenological, existential therapist. I believe in the client's experience. It's you know, I should have really thought about this before I agreed to do this. What is a psychotherapist?
I like the natural conversation. You know, it's not forced. You're not reading it from a book. So let's just talk about your experiences. You have to be able to empathize with people. Do you try to give answers, or you just listen? No, I try not to give. I try to meet people on a human plane. So I try. I'm no different. I'm not an expert. I'm not an advice giver. I'm not a sage. I'm not a master therapist. I'm a human being, and I try and meet people on the plane of humanity. And I remember one of my lecturers at uni almost shouting at me, "You just want your clients to be, don't you?" And I find that actually there's a miracle in just allowing people a place to be them, to be able to say the unsayable, not be judged, not have someone say, "We've spoken about you for half an hour, let's talk about me now," or "How dare you say that?" or there's something about just a place to be that I think is magical. Magical isn't a great word. It sounds a bit sort of, but there's something in it. There's something in being met by another human being who is just going to accept you. In Rogerian person-centered psychotherapy, it's called unconditional positive regard. So no matter what someone's done or who they are, you can meet them with positive regard. They're a human being, and invariably
something has led them to the place that they are.
So were you talking about people with pulling something out of thin air, addiction issues, relationship issues? Do you find that predominantly those are the people that you find there most of?
I would say life issues. So I used to work in an addiction place just because obviously I've
been around it a lot.
Substances,
You've been around
shall we
it
say, and I've enjoyed them, but I feel that I've then moved forward. You know, Frank Zappa, there's a quote from Frank Zappa that says, you know, do drugs, use drugs, and then leave them behind because they'll turn you into your parents. And I sort of, that always stayed in the back of my mind, and I sort of, that's how I've lived my life. You know, I enjoyed getting high, and then I've been moved on. So I worked in addiction. I do couples therapy now. But it's life, you know. It's so that one of my favorite psychotherapists is a guy called R.D. Laing, and his philosophy was that people aren't mad, but people are reacting to a mad society. And there's a famous sort of incident with Pink Floyd when Syd Barrett was in Pink Floyd, and he didn't want to go on top of the pops, and when the cameras would roll, he'd just stand stock still while the rest of the band played, and then the cameras would stop and he'd move around. He didn't want to play the fame game. And Roger Waters goes and speaks to R.D. Laing, and he says, Sid's gone mad. Sid's gone mad. He doesn't want to play the game. And R.D. Laing said, are you sure it's him that's gone mad? It sounds like you're playing the game. You know, it sounds like he just wants to be himself. And so it's very much about, you know, understanding someone else. And so, yeah, I get client, you know, I work for the NHS, I've got my own private practice, and I just say it's life, really.
And it is all about perspective. It's all relative, isn't it? I would assume, I'm asking the question, I can't make that statement. I would assume it's all relative, because some people are more open-minded to be aware of what's happening around them, and they can read situations and they don't take things so heavily upon themselves, whereas other people, they will reflect within and think that the world's falling apart because of them, and there's no way they can get out of that. This, I would assume, is all deeply rooted from our environment growing up.
I've no idea. I've no idea. You know, what makes someone, for instance, you know, what makes someone who is abused not be an abuser, and what makes someone who is abused continue the abuse. You know, I've no idea what that difference is. I've no idea what happens to someone for them to say, I am not going to be like that, and someone else to say, I am going to carry on, you know, carry on the sins of the father, if you like. You know, I've no idea what it is. And I think therapy only works if you want it to work. You know, if you believe there's something in it. Because if you were forced to go to therapy and you thought it was all bullshit, it just wouldn't work, because you'd be so sort of pulling back from it.
So you're not going to get that magic key that unlocks the box kind of scenario.
I mean,
if you're resistant to it from the off.
If you're resistant to it, yes. But I also think, you know, it's a conversation. You know, that's how I look at my therapeutic practices. It's a conversation about life with people, and to sort of go to the point of what I said about it's okay not to know.
Well, before we get to that point, because I want to make this as interactive as possible, I want to say hi to Pogwash, hi to Angel, hi to Jane, hi to Lou as well, or listening intently, or making comments. And Angel says, like hypnosis. I'm not sure what she was relating to that comment, but I think that's is hypnosis considered part of psychotherapy?
I think hypnosis only works if you're prepared to believe that it will work. If you're thinking hypnosis is bullshit, I'm not going to get, this isn't going to work on me, then it won't. And I also think hypnosis only works for people. So, for instance, if you want to give up smoking and someone hypnotizes you to give up smoking, then it will probably work. If you don't want to give up smoking, or you don't believe that hypnosis will work, then it probably won't work for you.
Right. Okay.
And my understanding is the sort of the stage show hypnosis, you know, the stuff that you see is normally edited because they'll get people up on stage who hypnosis just won't work for. They can't make them cluck like a chicken or whatever it is, you know. And I know that's the sort of the parlor, and you know, I've sort of, when my wife was pregnant, we went to a hypnotist, and I believe it really helped her have a very calm pregnancy, you know, and childbirth because of the hypnosis. And it was just about finding her place of calm, you know, of allowing it. And I would go through the hypnotic process with her because we went to a hypnotist who you know recorded it for us and said, this is what you need to say. And I would take my wife through those steps. And but she wanted it to work, you know, right. She believed. And okay. and I guess that's what that statement probably meant.
Okay, so I did cut you off. We were starting to get to the phrase that you gave for me, which would have been good as a strap line. It's okay not to know. So the floor is yours. How do you want to address this?
So that comes in on many different levels, I guess. So you were talking about the magic key. Mm-hmm. I don't believe there is a magic key. I believe there are magic keys, and everybody's magic key is different, you know. And so my private practice is called A-Step Therapy, which stands for a solution to every problem. However, that solution, is, you know, I believe is within the client when they come in the door. They just don't know how to find that solution. And my job is to enable them to find their own solution by being able to hear themselves talk about what it is that they want, how they want it to be, etc., etc., etc. Somebody might come through the door, or a couple might come through the door for for couples therapy. I can't, and they might want the solution that they're going to stay together, but in reality, they might not. You know, the reality is that they might find a place in therapy actually to work out that life has changed and they want to move on. Then that might be sad, or it might be liberating, or it might be anything, you know. But what I'm saying is the solution isn't always the solution we think it's going to be. So the key is always different because the lock is always different. So not knowing, when a client says to me, I don't know, I go, that's great. I love I don't know. Because if I said something to you like, do you think you can change? You're in the depths of despair. You're in, you know, you really are in a place where you want to work out what's going on for you because you want to feel more than rather than less than. And I use those terms rather than depression and anxiety and narcissism and all these sort of diagnoses that are used. I just use more than and less than when we're feeling less than. But less than can be right at the bottom of the pit where you want to just take your own life. You know, I'm not taking anything away from those diagnoses, but what I'm saying is I prefer not to use them. They're just words, and I think they weigh very heavily.
And they're buzzwords as well, right?
But they're like short. We live in a very psychotherapeutic aware time, and people will come in and say to me, my partner's a narcissist, I've got attachment issues, you know, all of these things. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Some of them might have been handed to them by a doctor or by somebody in a letter or whatever it is. And I just say, look, if you want to use those terms, that's fine. We can use those terms. Just be aware that when I say less than and more than, that's sort of what I'm talking about. Because I think to go to a doctor because you're feeling down, less than, whatever, and they go to you, oh, you've got depression. I think sometimes that can weigh so heavy upon you that it can be hard to get out of. But I'm not, you know, but for some people it names how they feel and it helps them move, and that's great. So not knowing, you know, if you came to me and you were like, look, I'm really in a state, I don't know what's going on, and I'd say to you, do you think you can change? Do you think you can get to a more than place rather than a less than place? Or do you think you can change? Whatever it is, and you said no, then that's like the door is locked. But if you say I don't know, the possibilities are endless. You know, the door is open, and you know, you can walk through it and you can go and think, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? How do I feel more than? What is happening for me? And I think, especially at the moment with social media, people want you to know. They have an opinion, they state their opinion, and you're either for them or against them. That would be how it seems to me. There's no middle ground, there's no gray area.
Yeah.
It's bipolar, right? But the problem is that, or not the problem, the reality is there's this huge place in between of I don't know. I don't know about COVID masks and vaccine. I don't know about cancelling statue. No, I don't know about this stuff. I want to sort of try and work it out. I want to have conversations with people. I want to have conversations with people who are opposed to me, who have different thoughts from me, because that's the only way we're going to be able to find a solution.
Yeah, but so much of the population don't come from that standpoint, do they?
I know.
No, that's
and
the
in
issue.
Therapy, for me, that's like one of the most important things is I don't know, because I don't know.
But what about if it is a straight out and out no? How do you start pushing them towards I don't know?
It's a conversation. It's just, you know, everybody is different. So as soon as somebody comes into my room, I'm an idiot, because I don't know who they are. I don't know how they are. I don't know where they've come from. They need to tell me who they are, how they are, why they are, what they are, so that they can work out what it is that's going to be to make them more than, what is going to be the solution to their problem. No one needs fixing in my mind. You know, we're not or we are all broken. You know, we're all broken.
I actually used that term a few days ago when I was promoting this conversation. I was saying that I was going to be in talks with a psychotherapist who will shed light on the fact that on why we are all so beautifully broken, because we are. And I think that is one of the first steps of being a better person, understanding that you're broken and realizing that we're all broken.
Do you know about the Japanese art? I think it's called kingashi,
No.
which is, it's mending normally broken pottery with golden glue, so that the cracks become beautiful, and they make the pot or the plate something new. You can see the breaks,
yeah,
but it's gold. And so you can imagine, I don't know, a black and white porcelain plate that's been smashed and then put back together with golden glue has a new beauty. And, you know, I have a saying, we're all apes sitting on a rock floating in space. None of us know what's going on. You know, we all think, we might think we do, but then, you know, we all thought we revolved, you know, the sun revolved around us, until someone went, no, it doesn't. And then he got castigated for it. However, it's now changed the way that we look at the world. So we don't really know anything. Mm-hmm. So when a client comes into my room, I really try to sort of not think, oh, I know what's wrong with you, because one, there's nothing wrong with them, and two, how helpful would that be to someone? Because I've had a conversation with someone else who had similar things happen to them, or a similar narrative, or a similar whatever, and I just went, oh yeah, you just need to do this. It'd be like, well, that's just reductive. And instead of allowing someone a place to be, allowing someone to realize, actually, I don't know is okay. I don't know doesn't mean something bad will happen. I don't know means something good could happen. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's the only key in the lock that's needed. Sometimes it's just accepting that we don't know. So for instance, I'm feeling a certain way. Why am I feeling this way? I shouldn't feel this way. I don't know why I feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way. And then that becomes the narrative, which just goes round and round and round and round. And maybe that's what we call depression. I don't know. I'm not belittling it in any way. But what I'm saying is, if you can just say, I don't know why I feel like this, mm-hmm. or is it important why I feel like this? Is it more important that I feel like this? And what is this feeling telling me?
Mm-hmm.
So again, going back to R.D. Laing, his philosophy was, if you're in a prison and the door is open, do you sit there thinking, why am I in this prison? Or do you walk out of the prison and then think, how did I get in there? You know, thinking about the why isn't always helpful. And we get caught up on that, the why. Hence the not knowing. It's fine not to know why. So, for instance, I mean, I'll be very honest, you know, when my dad died, I was really, really sad, you know, an existential sadness. You know, I had a very good relationship with my dad. It was a bumpy ride when I was a teenager. And I had to sort of put my foot down to be who I wanted to be with my dad, and he understood that and respected me. And after that, our relationship grew. So when he died, I was, you know, it was existentially, you know, he was here one minute, he was gone the next. I couldn't comprehend it. I wanted to talk to him, I wanted to ring him, I wanted to tell him how my day had been, all of this stuff. So I'd experienced this existential sadness. So when I get a letter from the bank telling me I'm overdrawn, when someone on eBay gets annoyed with me because they feel that the item I sold them isn't as it was described, whatever it is, it's like the sadness is a river that flows in me. It's always there. It's not near the surface, but it's always there. And these things like drill down into that river, and out of that river comes this like gushing geyser of sadness. It feels the same, it tastes the same, it looks the same, but it's not the same sadness I felt when my dad died. But it has an echo of it. It has the existential flavor of that sadness. So rather than me thinking, why am I so sad that this letter from the bankers come, I just think, I'm sad. It's telling me that it's a less than experience and all things must pass. And you know what? I'm going to do some breathing. I might go and play guitar. I might take the dog for a walk. I might watch a couple of something on Netflix, whatever. I'm going to be kind to myself.
Mm-hmm. Know thyself, right? Know thyself.
Yeah, I mean, know thyself is a state. I don't know if I know myself, Andy.
But you know yourself better than you did, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's a journey. We never know ourselves. We're knowing ourselves. We're getting to know ourselves. You know, it's a journey, and I will be a different person tomorrow than I am from today, and then I'll be a different person next week and next year. I'm not going to be the same person. None of us are. We're always changing. We're always moving into the future. So, but everything, happiness. It's not like, oh, you don't reach happiness and then go, I've reached happiness, I don't have to try anymore. You know, it's a constant thing. And happiness as well is like a chemical explosion in the brain for a fraction of a second. But sadness, or less than, seems to be much bigger and heavier and lasts longer and can obscure our view sometimes, you know. And
so how do you go about aiding people or listening to them and making them tell themselves how to change where they are in life? Because that's, I'm assuming, what you're saying. You are basically awakening people's subconscious kind of scenario.
As I've said, I see it as giving people a place to be, to explore who they are, to be able to say, what if I did this? Why can't I do that? This is bad, this is good. You know, I might say to them, well, it's a thing, isn't it? It's a feeling. Mm-hmm. We put the good or bad on it. Most things are amoral. They're neither good nor bad. They're just things. Sadness, it's not good, it's not bad. It's the thing. It's telling us something. Anger is seen as something that is bad, you know, but as John Lydon sang, anger is an energy, you know, it's telling us something. And all of these things, you know, maybe I'm talking out of turn. And as I've said, I don't know the secrets to the universe. I have no idea. I'm an idiot marching into the future, trying to make sense of this crazy world that we live in. but I try not to hang this is good, this is bad on my feelings, on the things that happen. So if I'm not doing that, I like to think that maybe I can embody that with a client so that they can explore how it is for them without going, I feel sad, that is bad, I must not feel sad, why do I feel sad? I don't know. Sometimes just allowing sadness to cry, without trying to shut someone down. You know, it's hard to see other people's sadness. It's hard to see other people's anger. It's hard to see those things, because I think a lot of the time we're thinking it's my fault. It's my fault they're sad. It's my fault they're angry or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time people are just feeling the way that they feel. It's not, you know, it's not your fault. So, but in the therapy room, that's sort of the given law, I guess. It wasn't me that made you sad. It wasn't me that made you angry. You know, explain how you're feeling right now. What's it telling you? What does it? And sometimes I try and get people to use, rather than explaining it in the head, explain it in the heart. You know, to say it feels hot, it feels red, it feels spiky. You know, not to try and be intelligent or intellectual about it, but to try and explain it. A lot of people say, I can't explain it. And I'm like, well, that's fine, but just use a sound, smack something, you know, just express it, you know, and maybe I can understand it that way. And by me understanding it, it then becomes less scary. It doesn't have the same overwhelming power that it can have when we're trying to hold it at bay the whole time. You know?
Let me ask you a question then. There is an undoubted stigma, or there was an undoubted stigma attached to therapy. And also, for example, if couples had to admit they need to go to marriage counselling or whatever, or I know people who of all ages who have gone to therapy in this country. In America, they embrace it with open arms. It's like you're weird if you haven't got a therapist, right? So tell us about the differences in attitude.
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it's because America was dealing with a lot more sort of in the 50s and the 60s when therapy sort of took a hold. You know, it was, you know, America was an apartheid state until 60s,
yeah,
you
true.
know, and
That's
my apologies if any of my
deep
American friends are offended by that. And
you're only
I'm
speaking
talking out of turn.
facts. You're only speaking facts.
I'm speaking of how I see it, and so maybe there was work to be done there in America. You know, that people were trying to make sense of this crazy. That's another human being, and they've got to sit at the back of the bus, and then the Beatles go there, and they're like, we're not playing in those places, and all of this stuff is happening, and all of these young kids are suddenly saying, "Ooh, that's what's going on," you know, and you know, obviously psychedelics get involved, you know, and prior to what's his name, Leary saying turn on, tune in, and drop out, psychedelics have been used for psychotherapy, you know, and now they're being used again for psychotherapy. And America got very scared, I think, because suddenly you've got all of these young kids thinking, well, I don't want to fight in a war, because they're starting to check out inside their heads. So, hey, it's going to make you jump out the window, kids. You got to stop this. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And I'm not saying take loads of acid. It's great. But what I am saying is, as soon as you start to question why, what, how, who am I, you're not necessarily going to do what other people want you to do. So
right. Let me put a pause on that train of conversation then, because we're starting to get into American politics and history.
Well, but it's world politics. It's America is the sort of, you're asking why America did that, and I think they had all, that was, it was the birth of the hippie and etc. and wanting to check out the inside of your mind, and I think that really set a fire underneath it, and I don't think there was enough of that over here. Maybe there was a few things, this guy Ardy Lang was working at the same time as these people were, but it just didn't. And maybe it's the British stiff upper lip, you know, who
You just took the words out of my mouth.
who knows?
I was
Who
about
knows?
to come to the chat thread, and Pogwash says stiff British upper lip bollocks in answer to that. So you and he.
Very true. And being a man and not you know, and don't fucking cry, and you cry baby, and you're fucking puffed up and all that sort of stuff, you know, and I'm a man's man, you know, and I'm not saying there's none of that anywhere else, but I think it's changing now. You know, I think there's a younger generation which is embracing it. And my own philosophy is I think everybody would benefit from talking to somebody for 50 minutes a week, the therapist's hour, 50 minutes, that would be a benefit, you know, talking to somebody about how you feel. And it doesn't need to be deep. It can just be about a thought you've had or whatever it is, you know, a conversation with someone that's not going to go, oh, I'll tell you what I think you should do, or, oh yeah.
Have you seen Afterlife?
I have seen Afterlife.
Do you love the latest series with the Psychotherapist is incredible, right?
Well, I haven't seen the latest series yet. I thought the first series was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was like this amazing sort of different television program, and I'm, you know, hand on heart, I think I watched some of the second series and it just didn't pull me in as much. And I'm guessing Ricky Gervais has possibly had some experiences with psychotherapists that have not been a benefit, you know.
Well, let me come back again to the thread. Mark Hogg is still with us. He said it's been so insightful. Thank you. Also, Malcolm up in Leeds, we say hi. Jane, I have seen your question. I've been waiting for Dan to finish what he's saying before I interrupt him. And this will continue with the, we talk about the therapist hour and what can be achieved when you are in a session with somebody. Jane asked a little while ago, do you tell your clients that you don't know when asked the question? You yourself, you don't know, because wouldn't they think, oh, what am I talking to you for then, if you haven't got answers for me?
I haven't got answers for anybody, Andy. I mean, fuck me. I hardly listen. You know, when I was younger, I wouldn't listen to myself, let alone anybody else. You know, who am I? Answers. You know, I give very little advice. One of it is breathing, you know, a breathing exercise to just try and help people calm down.
Is that part of your training? Or is this just your way?
It is sort of part of the training. Yeah. I mean, we covered it briefly, but it's not, there's so many things out there, breathing exercises, shaking therapy. So an animal, for instance, you've seen a gazelle maybe chased by a lion, and it uses all of that energy to get away from the lion. And when it's got away and it's safe, it shakes, right? Have you seen that?
No.
On the David Allen, so it shakes. My understanding is what it's doing is it's shaking out its sort of all its body drugs that push the adrenaline to get away from this animal. We don't do that. You know, when we get angry, when we experience trauma, we hold it in the body. There's a book called The Body Holds the Key, or The Body Holds the Score, or Keeps the Score, I believe. I'm not a great one for reading books. I'm much more of this sort of thing. When I was at uni, I freaked all my fellow students out because I never wrote any notes. I just listened. I just thought it's all going to be on, you know, on screen that I can download. I don't need to take notes. I'm just gonna soak it up and ask questions and play devil's advocate a bit and sort of, you know, and that was appreciated by some and not by others, you know, and fair enough. But so my training, you know, I guess it's, yeah, breathing is part of the training, but that's literally the only advice that I will give. And it's very interesting because a lot of people say, what you said last week, and invariably what I said last week was what I heard them say, and we don't hear ourselves say it, you know. Or I hear somebody say something and I will say, do you mean this? Or it sounds a bit like this, or it feels like that, or I'm feeling like this from what you're saying. And it might enable them then to sort of think, well, yeah, that was, or no, that's not how I was feeling. It's different. And oh, okay, well, but it allows them to define how it is. And maybe then they can find their way out of the maze of less than and into the Sunshine of more than. What a fucking hippie
No, it's
statement that
good. It's
was.
interesting.
Jesus.
Well, someone who has first-hand experience of this, I've mentioned him a few times this evening, Pugwash. He says, this is why I stopped CBT. So let's come back to that. Tell me what this means. No answers, me regurgitating my life to a stranger, and it just didn't help. So please explain what CBT stands for.
So CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay. I think I remember Katie Secor mentioning that before. Carry on, sorry.
And I'm going to try not to be political, okay? Because there is the body politic and then there is the outer politic, and invariably they're very linked. And I don't want this to become a political, diatribe. But CBT is very much about focusing on sort of one aspect of not being able to leave the house, possibly because you're experiencing what the CBT therapist will tell you is anxiety. So what they'll try and do is work out your negative automatic thought process, which is, I don't know, maybe, I don't know why I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to leave the house. If I leave the house, this will happen. And you go round in that circle that I spoke about earlier. And I think a lot of therapy, I have clients that come to me and say, my last therapist just sort of went, and repeated back what I said to them. As I said, I'm a human being and I will talk to, like we're having a conversation now, really. It's not any different from a therapy session, except for you're not, I'm doing a lot more of the talking, but it's a conversation. And a lot of the time, and I try and allow clients to
So let's use Pugwash as an example then, because he wanted to be vocal with his point. Is it the fact that he doesn't want to be fixed? If that's he's walking in there expecting you to have the answer, and when you haven't got the answer, he's like, okay, well, he's looking for that golden person who has got that golden key for him.
I would say anybody that's got the answer, go speak to someone else and see if they've got the same answer, because everybody will have a different answer. And if they haven't got a different answer, they've probably been to the same school or the same political party or the same mindset, whatever it is, because there is no answer. There are answers. And look, it's horses for courses.
So what if someone comes to you then suffering grief, like you say, about the crippling grief? They've just lost a life partner, they've just lost a parent, and they don't know, it's impossible for them to see past the grief. It's crippling them.
Yeah.
How does the conversation go?
That sounds, we talk about I get them to talk to me. I just say, that sounds really, it sounds devastating. And invariably people would, this is how you're going to get rid of your grief, because fuck me, that doesn't work. That sort of stuff.
Can you relate to them? Can you tell them you empathize because you've been in a similar position, or is that a big no-no?
I will be honest, and I will say that I have done that in the past. I have said to clients that I've lost my dad. For instance, I've still got mum and dad on my telephone. My dad died like 8 years ago. I've still got mum and dad. I'm not going to remove him from my telephone, because my mum still lives in the house. It's their house. It's their telephone number. Now, I might be an idiot for that. And I will, I do empathize with clients. Or I try to empathize with clients. So sometimes it's just about, as I've said, allowing people a space to grieve, because grieving with our friends can sometimes feel we are burdening them.
Yeah, definitely.
And grief can be quite a private thing. We don't want others to see our grief. We don't want others to see our pain. It's fine. People apologize when they cry, and I'm like, it's fine. It's okay. You've experienced something really sad. Why wouldn't you cry? It's all right. It's all right to cry here. If you cried all session, I wouldn't be going, come on, here's a tissue, pull yourself together. Come on, British, step up a lip, But it's not short term. It's not, here you go. you've come to see me. Here's a tablet. Here's a mantra. Here's the thing. This will solve your problems. You know, we are complicated, beautiful individuals that don't know the answers. We're all trying to figure it out. You know, some people choose religion, some people choose drugs, some people choose money, some people choose all three of those things in one go. You know, there's so many things out there that we can try to understand the world through that lens.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when we're just given the chance to try and understand it through our own lens, to try and work out what it is that we're feeling, why we're feeling it, what it's telling us. And you know, I don't have I'm very honest with, I do not have the answers. You know, I wish I did have magic dust that I could sprinkle on and it would be all right. I wish I did know the answer.
Not anymore.
You know, one, I'd be the richest man in the world. I'd be richer than Elon Musk, you know. However, it doesn't work like that. You know, it takes time, it takes work, it takes effort. I think coming to therapy is a really brave thing to do.
Most definitely.
I think people come to therapy because they want to feel better, but I think in reality we come to therapy because we need to feel. And I will often say to my clients, you know, especially on the first session, how has it been for you today to talk to a complete stranger? Especially in this time, we're doing it on Zoom or telephone. I've literally only gone back into seeing people face to face a couple of weeks ago. So some people don't even know what I look like, you know, and I say, how has it been to speak to a complete stranger? And if people say to me, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, I'm happy to have that on my gravestone. You know, because therapy shouldn't be poking around in people and making them feel worse. It should be about a place where people can come because they are feeling a certain way. And people use the word relieving or you know, or a weight taken off their shoulders or whatever it is. But also sometimes that first session can be a bit like that because you're speaking to somebody who is just going to say, tell me how it is for you. I'm not going to go, or whatever, you know. And it can be a revelation. No one's ever listened to me like that before. Everyone's always told me I'm wrong, I'm stupid, I can't do this, I shouldn't do that. This is amazing. And that first session can be like,
what is it? What is it about people who feel they can talk to a stranger that they can't say to their closest friend?
Because we don't.
Isn't that to do with the person themselves? And I find that difficult to comprehend.
Again, that I think that's really important because people, maybe they understand that they're not going to burden me because I don't know them, and also I don't. You know, if people come to me and say, who are my mates, and say, could you? I say, well, I can't give you therapy. I know you. I've already formed an idea of who you are. And all of our friends do that with us. All of our friends think, oh, you're the one that never buys around. You're the one that, you know, always gets into a road rage incident. You're the one that never says anything to anybody about. And, you know, everybody's already got their little preconceived ideas about people. You know, that's how it is. But when you come to a therapist, they don't, and therefore it's almost like you can put yourself back together in front of somebody without them saying, oh, that's rubbish, you couldn't do that. When we were at school, you were always the one that was last in the race. There's no, you know, or whatever. So having a stranger, and I guess it's been there throughout history, the confessional you know, in the church, or having a shaman to talk to. There's always been someone, the secret keeper, if you like. And there's something in that. There's something in the. So when I was a very young man and I would go to bed very, very stoned, I would find it hard to go to bed, and I would call it the church full of ping pong balls, where I have all these thoughts and I wouldn't be able to get to bed because I'd have all these thoughts in my head. So I used to get a dictaphone, and, you know, these were the days before mobile phones, and just jabber into the dictaphone. Didn't necessarily make sense. I wouldn't necessarily listen to it in the morning. But the fact that it was out of my head and it was out in the world and it was gone from my head meant that I could then go to sleep.
I 100% relate to that. I do something, just walking down the beach and going live just to talk to people who are there. Not really got anything important to say, just to let people hear the sea. And I do say regularly, thank you for letting me exercise, getting these words out of me. It just allows me to crack on with my day. So I 100% relate to that.
So maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm the dictaphone. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I say. Because actually, it's just about saying something that I've had clients say something and they've not said it for 40 years out loud. And they've said it. And because my reaction wasn't, or fucking, whatever, it was like, it was more of a, that must have been really hard to keep that inside. It's like, oh my, I can't believe that the relief I feel from, but I didn't do anything apart from allow them to say it without judging them.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe even seeing it empathetically, maybe understanding it from their point of view. So maybe I'm just a dictaphone. Maybe I'm just and there's a thing called negative capability that the poets, the sort of the romantic poets would talk about. And it's almost like being there, but not being there. It's almost like giving a client, saying, this is a place for you to be, and then sort of just blending into the background to allow them to tell their story, to guide them maybe a little bit, a bit like sitting next to someone on a boat on a river. As you go down the river, you're taking the journey together, but yeah, I'm not a great one. I don't like being told things by people. I don't like being told this is what's wrong with you. So for instance, the word narcissism, I call that the second N word, because it's never used in a nice way. No one ever says you're such a lovely narcissist, and there's an old joke that two psychotherapists, if they're married and they're arguing, one of them will call the other a narcissist, and that's the end of the argument. It's never a nice thing. But when we call someone a narcissist, what we're actually saying is that person has probably experienced such trauma in their past that they've had to create this way of being to survive, and is calling them a narcissist a benefit to them? Or is it trying to understand why but invariably they're not going to be in the therapy room anyway, because they don't think they've got a problem. But
well, let's talk about the therapy room, shall we? Because I think this may be important for some people. You say you work for the NHS, sorry, and you also have your own private practice.
Yeah.
From people that I've spoken to, and just from hearing and reading and whatever, is it difficult to get therapy on the NHS? And if people do want to have therapy, what kind of cost are they talking about for a session, and how many sessions does generally tend to have? I mean, I know that's a very open-ended question, but I'm sure you can start to answer it.
So the NHS will offer you CBT normally. And I believe there is probably more of a move now to offer psychotherapy, talking. Cognitive behavioural therapists will say they're psychotherapists. Like the words, whatever. But what I'm saying is the more the talking therapy, the existential, humanistic therapy, is sort of happening more and more on the NHS. It's normally very short term, 6 to 10 sessions. But I believe that I have seen clients make amazing progress in that time. They've made the progress. It's not me going, this is what you should do. It's them coming and talking to someone and figuring it out. Sometimes it can work. Sometimes, much longer is needed, So it's free at point of access. You pay for the NHS through your taxes in the UK. Go and speak to your doctor, see what's available, and if nothing is available, there's Mind. There's, you might find that there is university in your local area that has a psychotherapy course, and maybe they have students who will provide psychotherapy free of charge for you, and if you're going to do it privately, you're looking at about, I charge 60 quid for a session.
Because I heard, so it was a podcast I was listening to the other day. Funnily enough, I listened to a lot of spoken podcasts, and they were saying that pretty much all private doctors and all private therapists are NHS therapists working privately on their day off, kind of thing, if they haven't got their own practices. So it's not like there's any less of a. It's not that you're getting better serviced if you're paying way over the odds, right?
But you might get it for longer. That's the only difference. You might get it for longer. And I love working for the NHS. I believe that I see clients that would never come to the door of a private therapist's room because of the cost, because a doctor hasn't told them, maybe you should have some therapy. We can get you some therapy. We can get you to talk to someone, And I really like working for the NHS. I know a lot of people have quite a hard time because it's about numbers and it's about getting people recovered, and what does that even mean a lot of the time, So, and also, that there are places that will provide what's called low-cost, long-term psychotherapy. They are far and few between, and you will probably have to fight your way in. There's a big, long waiting list. The only issue with that is you have to have the therapist you are given. And my words of advice to anybody wanting a therapist is go and interview 5 or 6 different therapists, because you will know the therapist that you feel comfortable with just from a conversation. Just from a 5-minute, 10-minute conversation with someone, you'll know whether they're your kind of person or not, So I've had people that have come for me for a couple of sessions, disappeared. I've got people that have come to me and stayed for years, So I know it's not me. It's just about I am not the psychotherapist for everybody.
Because you've got a big heart, do you ever take offense if they don't come back? Do you ever think, did I do something wrong or whatever?
Well, I have a supervisor. I have to have supervision. The law, for me to be a qualified psychotherapist or an accredited psychotherapist under the BACP, the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy, I have to have supervision on a regular basis, and that enables me to go to someone and say, maybe I said the wrong thing and this person left.
When you say supervision, you mean someone you answer to, or someone sat in the back of the room with a clipboard?
No, someone I talk to every 2 weeks about how I feel about doing my work.
Mm-hmm.
And enables me to sort of decompress.
Well, does it ever weigh heavily upon the shoulders? Sometimes do you ever hear stories that
sadness? I can feel people's sadness a lot, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, I'm all right with sadness. It's a thing. It exists. It's a bit like I see it as the opposite side of a coin that's got love on it. And if you were to spin it, it's the same thing. I sent you that song that I'd written. Hey kids, I write songs. Happy, sad, and I truly believe that it's the same. The reason that we feel sad invariably is because we've loved.
That's brilliant. Again, I think we're just so in sync, because I was going to come around to talking about that. Emily is here. Hi, Emily. She says, I work in mental health for the NHS. It's hard work, but really rewarding. So again, I want to say thank you to anyone that's here, that's passing through. We've been on air for an hour and 5 minutes now. So make sure you go back and check out Dan and myself in conversation. Angel, who has experienced grief herself in recent times, she says, I couldn't do your job. It would probably be me, the one crying through the session. So that will lead me neatly into saying to you, Mr. Kiely, let's talk about more recent grief for yourself, how we reconnected, the passing of a dear, dear friend last year. You were very close to Phil Asher. and that hit you hard, right? So tell us how you dealt with that.
How did I deal with it? I don't know how I dealt with it. I felt sad. I missed him. I missed calling him. I missed him hanging out in my garden studio and making him food. I missed all of these things, but I had experience, I'd experienced it, so I could feel the bathe in the afterglow of that. But it's a spinning coin, and I see his face every now and then, and it takes me back, but it also makes me hear his laugh. It makes me, but also his humanness, that everything else about him, is I'm not fucking doing that or whatever, or I don't want to do that or whatever it was, and I miss it, I miss him a lot, and it's part of life, we're all gonna go eventually, I'm sorry to burst that bubble if people don't understand, we're all gonna go, so you might as well get busy living rather than worrying about it coming. And when you do experience it, it's so human and it so touches us because it reminds us of our own mortality, I guess, as well. And this weird thing of like, well, they were here and now they're not, and how does that even work? How, it's like a science fiction film, or it's peculiar. So I don't know how I dealt with it. I did because I know what it's like to lose someone that you love, and it's devastating. But it's that horrible thing of,
Did you just pass wind then, or was that your chair?
No, that was me going. That's how I tell the kids, and that's why I tell the kids when they ask. It was me saying. I don't know, Andy. I don't know the secret. I don't know. I literally don't know. And I like not knowing. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen when I walk out this door. I don't know what's going to happen in the next second talking to you. And I'm all right with that, because if you think and then something comes along and disrupts it, then it sort of knocks you off course, and then you've got to steer yourself back. So just not knowing, and I really don't know how I deal with it. I don't know these things. All I know is that it happened, and these things will happen again, and they will knock the wind out of myself, and I will be devastated, So it's a journey. Mm-hmm. And the end line is not somewhere that I'm racing towards, I try to take the journey as slowly as I can.
Has experiencing that grief, does it take away the fear, as you say, about your own mortality? You're not worried anymore, or there are times, sometimes, especially with the family as well.
I'm racked by that fear, of what's it going to be like? Is there anything afterwards? Will it be, what does it mean not to exist? I didn't exist. Everyone's worried about this not existing, but we didn't exist before our father's sperm met our mother's egg, so we didn't exist, we exist, and then we don't exist again. But what does not exist mean? I've absolutely no idea. But sometimes it scares the living daylights out of me. Most of the time, I just think, well, I might as well just get busy living, Mm-hmm. I'm aware that my computer looks like it's going to die, and I think that's because my light was taking the.
Well, listen, we've been chatting for a while, and I did say at the beginning that we will end up just having a conversation and going off on all kinds of angles. I think we've been able to get the crux of the psychotherapy. You've definitely answered questions for myself. Okay. You've answered questions that others have left. So I'll start to wrap it up, and I'll say thank you for your time. Michelle has been watching, the lovely wife. She did comment earlier, and I didn't get around to saying she was really enjoyed the analogy of the broken plate being put back together with the golden glue. So I have to say, because you're not really very active on Facebook, if people do want to reach out and talk to you, how can they get in touch with you?
If they go to my website, asteptherapy.com, I think my telephone number's on there, or there's a form about how to contact me. And even when the DJ days, when people would ring me, bedroom DJs ring me saying, "Can you get me gigs?" I'd spend half an hour talking to them about why I couldn't get them gigs, and I didn't want to be avoiding their telephone calls. And I like talking to people, as you can probably tell. I haven't shut up since you've asked me to come on.
That's the whole point. That was the whole point.
But I would like to reiterate, I don't know what the answers are. Okay, everything I've said is just how I feel, just how I think, just how I try and live my life. I don't know what the answers are. Please don't take it too seriously,
Life in general. Yeah. Okay, Dan, listen, I'll let you go before your computer dies. Thank you, my friend. I'll send you a message later.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me to be on the program. Listening to me.
Yeah. No, listen, it was divine. It was divine timing. It was divine timing. We were talking about Flash. It came up conversation. You were telling me about your new path, and I said, listen, this sounds something perfect that I'd like to share with people who join me regularly. So thank you again, man. We got a lot of people saying thank you. I'll send you a link onto the YouTube so you can read back through the comments and reply to them in your own good time.
And you keep doing what you're doing, about inspiring, Andy, because that's important, to be inspired, whether that be through something as simple as watching a sunset to actually changing your way you think by listening to somebody else talk, whatever it is. Being inspired is so important, and just so carry on doing it, mate. Doing a great job.
Thank you very much, mate. You take care. Mate. One love.
See you later.
And there goes Dan. Wonderful. Yeah, inspire and be inspired. It's something that I've said for many, many years, more than I can actually remember. I've always been inspired by positive people around me, and I take great pleasure in inspiring others. I get messages daily of people thanking me for little things that I've done, big things that we all do as a community. And it's you guys who come back on a regular basis who definitely do continue to inspire me. You can see that on the screen, the Access crew is there. People who support me monthly. We have the logos coming up. People with their own businesses, people with their own services. All of you guys absolutely integral in my motivation and my inspiration on a daily basis, of course, mostly based around the Vocal Booth family. So let me read back through some of these comments. Pogs, I hope you well, you probably didn't get anything out of that, but it was interesting to have you with me watching, so thank you. Pogwash and I actually are going to be having an interview on Friday. Pogwash has got an incredible story. We'll just be talking about his music career. Let's not talk about anything else, because that'll lead into about a 6-hour conversation. So Pogs and I are going to be having a really interesting conversation on Friday, which I will record. Going down, so Malcolm was commenting, packs from start to finish. Bobby says, thanks for being real, Dan. Thank you, Bobby, for being here. Dev as well. How are you, my man? The wife enjoyed all of that. I can't believe we grabbed her away from whatever nonsense it was she was watching on the telly. We are honoured. Schoolie as well, Jane, and Bobby and Pug saying, no, he did. He enjoyed it. Here on the screen, it says, it's okay not to know. I should have actually changed that, but I can. Let me just do this. Next show. If I go like this, bear with, he says. Right, Schoolie, check this out. Next, I can't see it in there. It's too small. Next week on the show, I am going to be talking to Michael Brown and Amo Talwar in the series Brum as Fuck. Now, this is exciting. This is going to be a really, really important conversation talking about sound system days in Birmingham and around the Midlands. It's going to be talking about the birth of the hip hop scene. It's going to be talking about the rise of the Asian music on the Birmingham music scene up and down the country, the explosion. We all remember when that happened in the 90s. So that's going to be a brilliant conversation. And it's one that I'm sure Simon would be able to conduct much better than me. But I'm going to do my best to make him proud. Join me next week. So everybody else passing through again on the recording, thank you for being here. Feel free to leave a comment. Dan will come back and read all of the comments, and I'll be sure to paste the link to his website if you want to go and check him out. That is me, Tuesday evening. Thank you as always. Love you dearly. And where are we? Tuesday night. What is happening? I'll be talking to Pogosh on Friday, and then on Sunday Craig Smith is flying over, and we're going to be having a live do in the studio. Make sure you're here, guys. Love you all. Take care.